She stood in the kitchen, staring at the plate. The food was still warm. The poison had already dissolved. In her mind, the plan was simple: end the boy's life and secure her son's future forever. But fate has a cruel sense of humor, because the child who took the first bite was not the one she wanted dead. This is the story of a woman who tried to kill her stepson and destroyed her own child instead. They said money could buy anything: power, influence, comfort, protection. But when Adrian Matthews stood alone beside a hospital bed, holding the cold hand of the woman he loved, all the billions he owned meant nothing. The machines around her hummed softly, like they were whispering apologies no one could hear. His wife, Naomi Matthews, had been sick for years. Not the kind of sickness that screams for attention, but the quiet kind that slowly steals a person away, piece by piece. Cancer. By the time the doctors finally said the word out loud, it was already too late. Adrian had begged. He had paid for the best hospitals, the best specialists, experimental treatments overseas. Private jets flew her across oceans. Entire hospital wings were renamed after donations he made in her name. But sickness doesn't recognize wealth, and death doesn't negotiate. Naomi knew she didn't have much time left. What surprised everyone, including the doctors, was that she insisted on carrying her pregnancy to term. They warned her, they pleaded. But Naomi was stubborn in the way only a woman deeply in love could be. She wanted to leave something of herself behind. And so, one rainy night in Atlanta, as thunder rolled across the sky like morning drums, Jordan Matthews was born, a tiny boy with warm brown skin, a soft cry, and eyes that seemed far too aware for a newborn. Naomi held him once, just once. She kissed his forehead, smiled weakly at Adrian, and whispered words only he would ever hear. "Love him the way you loved me." She died less than an hour later. That night changed Adrian Matthews forever. In the years that followed, Adrian became two men living in one body. By day, he was the billionaire CEO, sharp suits, decisive voice, a titan of real estate whose name carried weight in boardrooms and government halls alike. His empire stretched across cities, his schedule packed with meetings, flights, and deals that never slept. But by night, he was just a father. Jordan was his anchor. Adrian learned how to braid small twists into Jordan's hair. He learned bedtime stories, school drop-offs, parent-teacher meetings. He learned how to smile through grief, so his son would never feel the weight of a loss he was too young to remember. The mansion they lived in was massive. Marble floors, tall ceilings, rooms Jordan barely used. But Adrian always made sure Jordan's laughter filled the halls. Nannies came and went. Tutors rotated. But Adrian was constant, at least when he was home, and that was the problem. As Jordan grew older, Adrian's empire grew with him. More cities, more responsibility, more travel. Eventually, Adrian was gone more than he was present, and loneliness has a way of creeping into even the most beautiful homes. Jordan was 6 years old when Adrian met Vanessa Clark. She was graceful, polished, and intelligent, a former art consultant who moved comfortably among wealthy circles. She knew how to speak softly, but command attention, how to smile without revealing too much. She admired Adrian openly, and she admired Jordan quietly. At first, she brought gifts, complimented his manners, praised his intelligence. To outsiders, she looked like the perfect woman to step into Naomi's place. But behind closed doors, something else stirred. Vanessa saw the way Adrian looked at his son. It wasn't ordinary love. It was devotion. Jordan didn't just inherit Naomi's eyes. He inherited her place in Adrian's heart. And Vanessa noticed everything. The way Adrian canceled meetings to attend Jordan's school plays. The way he softened when Jordan spoke. The way his voice changed when he said his son's name. Vanessa smiled through it all. But envy is patient. 2 years later, Adrian proposed. He believed he had found balance again. Someone to share his life with, someone to help raise Jordan, someone who understood the sacrifices his success demanded. The wedding was lavish, the guest list powerful, the photos flawless. Jordan wore a tiny tailored suit and walked beside his father proudly, holding his hand. Vanessa watched them, and for the first time, she understood something terrifying. No matter what ring she wore, no matter what vows were spoken, she would never come first. After the wedding, life changed quietly. At first it was small things. Jordan's favorite cereal disappeared. His bedtime stories were forgotten. His clothes were folded differently. Vanessa never yelled, never struck him. She was too smart for that. Her cruelty lived in tone, in neglect, in small calculated moments that Adrian would never notice because he was never around long enough. Jordan tried to be good. He tried to be invisible. But children always feel what adults pretend doesn't exist. A year into the marriage, Vanessa became pregnant. Adrian was thrilled. Jordan was confused. He wanted a sibling, someone to talk to when the house felt too quiet. But something in Vanessa's eyes changed the day the doctor confirmed the baby was a boy. That night, she stood alone in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. Her hand rested on her stomach, and for the first time, her jealousy found direction. "This one," she whispered, "will be mine." When Malik Matthews was born, the house transformed. The attention shifted, the energy changed, and Jordan felt himself slowly being pushed to the edges. Vanessa became fiercely protective of Malik, almost obsessively so. Jordan was no longer allowed to touch certain things. Not allowed in certain rooms, not allowed near Malik without supervision. She called it safety, but it wasn't. It was separation. Adrian noticed none of it. His business began to demand more than ever before. Deals in Dubai, contracts in London, emergency meetings in New York. He trusted Vanessa. Why wouldn't he? She was his wife, the mother of his child, the woman who kissed him goodbye and promised, "I'll take care of everything." And she did, just not the way he imagined. Jordan learned early how to swallow pain. He learned not to complain, not to cry too loud, not to ask questions. The housekeeper, Miss Loretta, noticed. She had worked in that mansion since Naomi was alive. She saw the difference, felt it in the air. The warmth was gone, and the boy who once laughed freely now walked carefully, like he was afraid of making noise. Miss Loretta wanted to speak up, but power makes cowards of good people. And Vanessa's smile warned her to stay silent. By the time Jordan turned 10, Vanessa's resentment had hardened into something darker. She didn't just dislike him. She feared him because Jordan was growing, smarter, kinder, more like his father. And one day, Adrian would stop traveling. One day, he would see everything. Vanessa knew she was running out of time, and in the quiet corners of her mind, a thought began to form. Cold, simple, permanent, Jordan had to go. By the time Jordan turned 11, the house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a place where he existed only when necessary, and disappeared whenever convenient. Adrian Matthews was still flying across continents, closing deals that reshaped skylines and economies. His name was becoming legendary in business circles. Interviews called him self-made. Headlines praised his discipline and vision, but no one asked what it cost his family. When Adrian left for work, the mansion grew quiet, and in that quiet, Vanessa became someone else. At first, her cruelty was subtle, wrapped in calm words and measured tones. "Jordan, go upstairs. You're in the way." "Jordan, didn't I tell you not to touch that?" Jordan, you're old enough to know better." She never raised her voice, never left bruises. She left something worse: doubt. Jordan began to question himself, his memories, his worth. Every mistake, real or imagined, was proof in Vanessa's eyes that he was a problem, and problems, she believed, had solutions. Malik, on the other hand, was treated like royalty. Vanessa hovered over him constantly. His meals were carefully prepared, his clothes ironed perfectly, his toys expensive and abundant. Jordan watched from a distance. He learned that love could be divided, and that he was on the losing side. Miss Loretta saw everything. She noticed how Jordan flinched when Vanessa entered a room, how his shoulders slumped when she spoke his name, how he waited for permission to exist. Once, she found him standing in the kitchen late at night, staring into the fridge. "You hungry, baby?" she asked gently. Jordan shook his head too quickly. "No, ma'am." But his stomach betrayed him. Growling loudly, Miss Loretta fixed him a plate anyway. Vanessa walked in just as Jordan took his first bite. "What do you think you're doing?" she asked calmly. Jordan froze. Miss Loretta tried to explain, but Vanessa's eyes never left Jordan. "I already fed him," she said. "He's just greedy." Jordan put the fork down. Miss Loretta knew then. This wasn't discipline. This was punishment. Vanessa justified everything in her mind. Jordan was not her responsibility. Jordan was Naomi's son. Jordan was a reminder that she would always be second. And as Malik grew older, her fear grew with him, because Jordan was smart, too smart. Teachers praised him constantly. Tutors spoke of scholarships and early admissions. Adrian beamed with pride whenever Jordan's report cards came in. Vanessa smiled too, but inside, something cracked. Jordan was becoming a threat. One evening, Adrian called home from Paris. "How are my boys?" he asked cheerfully. "They're fine," Vanessa replied smoothly. Jordan stood nearby, listening. Adrian asked to speak to him. Vanessa hesitated, then handed over the phone. Jordan's voice brightened instantly. "Hey, Dad." Adrian heard the difference, the happiness, the relief. For a moment, guilt crept in. "I'll be home soon," Adrian promised. "Just a few more days." Jordan nodded, even though his father couldn't see it. "I know." Vanessa took the phone back. That night, Jordan's dinner was cold. Vanessa's resentment deepened into something colder. Strategic. She began watching Jordan carefully, studying his routines, his habits, his favorite foods. She noticed how much he loved her cooking, especially on the rare nights she made an effort. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, sweet cornbread, comfort food, trust food. And an idea planted itself quietly in her mind. Not yet, but soon. Her obsession grew worse when Adrian started talking about the future. "Jordan's getting older," he said one night. "I want him involved in the business eventually." Vanessa smiled. Of course. But later that night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. If Jordan stayed, Malik would always come second. Inheritance, legacy, power. Jordan stood in the way of everything she wanted for her son, and Vanessa had never been a woman who accepted obstacles. She started pushing boundaries. Jordan's punishments became harsher, his isolation more complete. No phone, no TV, no friends over. She told Adrian Jordan was acting out, that he needed structure. Adrian believed her. He trusted her. And Vanessa learned something dangerous. She could get away with it. One afternoon, Malik wandered into Jordan's room. He picked up one of Jordan's books and tore a page accidentally. Vanessa walked in just as Jordan shouted, "Stop!" That was all she needed. She slapped Jordan, hard. The sound echoed through the room. Jordan froze. Vanessa froze too. For a brief moment, she realized what she had done. Then she straightened. "Don't you ever raise your voice at my son again," she said quietly. That night, Jordan locked himself in the bathroom and cried silently into a towel. Miss Loretta heard him, and something in her broke. Vanessa's thoughts turned darker. She researched quietly, carefully. She learned about substances that caused symptoms resembling food poisoning, fast-acting, hard to trace, easy to dismiss. Accidents happen, especially in wealthy homes where doctors assume negligence, not malice. She told herself she wasn't a monster. She was a mother, protecting her child. But fate has a way of twisting intentions. Because as Vanessa planned Jordan's removal, Malik was becoming curious. He followed her everywhere, asked questions, wanted what Jordan had. He loved Jordan, and Vanessa hated that. One evening, Vanessa stood in the kitchen alone, staring at 2 plates, one for Jordan, one for Malik. She imagined a future where Jordan no longer existed. No more competition, no more fear. Just her son, her husband, her legacy. Her hands trembled, but she steadied them. This was necessary, or so she believed. Somewhere upstairs, Jordan sat on his bed doing homework. He had no idea that the woman responsible for his care was quietly deciding whether he deserved to live. The day Vanessa decided to act did not arrive with thunder or warning. It arrived quietly, like most terrible decisions do. Adrian Matthews had flown out early that morning. A last-minute meeting in San Francisco. He kissed Malik on the forehead, hugged Jordan tightly, and told Vanessa he would be back in 2 days. "Take care of them," he said. Vanessa smiled. "I always do." The front door closed behind him, and the house fell into a silence that felt heavier than usual. Vanessa spent most of the day calm. Too calm. She cleaned the kitchen thoroughly, wiped down surfaces that were already spotless, washed her hands repeatedly. Her mind replayed every step. She had chosen the meal carefully. Jordan's favorite, fried chicken, creamy mac and cheese, cornbread, food that meant comfort, safety, home. She had practiced this moment in her head so many times that it almost felt routine. Almost. Miss Loretta noticed the change immediately. Vanessa hummed softly as she cooked. Her movements were precise, measured. That alone was unusual. "Smells good," Miss Loretta said cautiously. Vanessa didn't look up. "It should," she replied. "Jordan deserves a nice meal for once." Miss Loretta frowned. Something about the tone unsettled her, but she said nothing. Upstairs, Jordan sat at his desk finishing his homework. He heard the clatter of dishes and felt a familiar confusion. Vanessa rarely cooked for him anymore. When she did, it usually meant something else followed. A lecture, a punishment, a reminder of his place. Still, his stomach twisted with hunger. Malik ran through the hallway laughing, toy car in hand. "Dinner yet?" he shouted. "Soon," Vanessa replied. Her eyes followed him longer than necessary. When the food was ready, Vanessa plated it carefully. 2 plates, nearly identical, except one. Into Jordan's plate, she added a clear, tasteless substance. It dissolved instantly, disappearing into the steam rising from the food. Her heart pounded, her hands shook. For a moment, doubt crept in. She thought of Adrian, of prison, of consequences. Then she thought of Jordan standing beside Adrian one day, inheriting everything, and the doubt hardened into resolve. "Jordan," she called calmly. "Dinner." Jordan hesitated. He glanced toward the stairs, then slowly made his way down. The kitchen looked warm, inviting. Too inviting. Vanessa placed the plate in front of him. Malik climbed onto his chair beside him. Vanessa turned away for just a second to grab napkins. Just a second. "Mom," Malik said suddenly, pointing. "I want his." Vanessa froze. Jordan looked at Malik, confused. "That's mine," Jordan said quietly. Malik frowned. "But yours has more chicken." Vanessa turned back. Time slowed. The plates sat inches apart. Jordan reached for his fork. Malik reached for the other plate. "No," Vanessa snapped, louder than she intended. Both boys froze. Vanessa's breath caught. She forced a smile. "Sorry, just eat what you have." Jordan pulled his hand back. Malik, confused but stubborn, grabbed Jordan's plate anyway and switched them quickly. Children move fast. Too fast. Before Vanessa could stop him, Malik took a big bite. The sound of chewing filled the room. Vanessa felt the blood drain from her face. "No," she whispered. Jordan stared at Malik. Vanessa's knees weakened. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Malik dropped his fork. He clutched his stomach. "Mommy," he whimpered. Then he fell forward. The world shattered. Vanessa screamed. A raw, animal sound tore from her throat as she rushed to him, lifting his limp body. "No, no, no, no!" Jordan stood frozen. "Malik," he whispered. Malik's body began to convulse. Foam gathered at his lips. Vanessa screamed for help. Miss Loretta ran in. Her eyes widened in horror. "What did he eat?" she shouted. Vanessa couldn't answer. She couldn't breathe. She could only hold her son as the life slipped from him. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Sirens pierced the night. Paramedics worked frantically, but their expressions said everything. Jordan sat in the corner, shaking. He watched as they carried Malik away. Vanessa followed, hysterical. Her screams echoed down the driveway. At the hospital, doctors rushed Malik into emergency care. Vanessa paced the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Jordan sat alone. Miss Loretta sat beside him, holding his hand tightly. "This ain't right," she whispered. Hours later, a doctor emerged. His face was solemn. "I'm sorry," he said. "We did everything we could." Vanessa collapsed. Her scream echoed through the hallway. Jordan stared at the floor. He didn't cry. He couldn't. Adrian arrived just after midnight. He ran through the hospital doors, panic written across his face. "What happened?" he demanded. Vanessa clung to him, sobbing. "I don't know," she cried. "He just collapsed." Adrian turned to Jordan. Jordan met his eyes, and for the first time, Adrian saw fear, real fear. The doctors mentioned food poisoning. Routine questions followed. Who cooked the meal? What did he eat? Was anyone else sick? Vanessa answered automatically. Jordan stayed silent. Miss Loretta watched Vanessa closely, and what she saw terrified her. Not grief, guilt. That night, as Malik lay lifeless in the hospital morgue, Vanessa sat alone in a bathroom stall, staring at her trembling hands. She whispered the same words over and over. "I didn't mean to." But fate doesn't care about intentions, and evil does not get to choose its victims. Somewhere down the hall, Jordan finally broke down in his father's arms, and Adrian Matthews realized something was terribly wrong. Death has a way of slowing time. In the days after Malik's passing, the Matthews mansion felt hollow, like a shell abandoned by the life that once filled it. The laughter was gone. The warmth vanished. Even the walls seemed to grieve. Vanessa stayed locked in her room. She cried loudly when others were near. She cried quietly when she was alone. But no matter how many tears fell, they could not wash the truth from her hands. The autopsy results came back within 48 hours. Cause of death, acute poisoning, not food contamination, not negligence, not an accident. Poison! The doctor's words echoed in Adrian's mind long after the meeting ended. Someone intentionally introduced a toxic substance into the food. Adrian felt the ground shift beneath him. Someone, in his home, near his children. Detectives arrived that same evening. Questions filled the mansion like smoke. Who cooked the meal? Who served it? Who had access to the kitchen? Vanessa answered everything smoothly. Too smoothly. Jordan sat quietly beside Miss Loretta, his eyes downcast. Adrian watched them both, and slowly, pieces began to connect. Miss Loretta couldn't stay silent anymore, not after watching a child die. Not after seeing the terror in Jordan's eyes. She asked Adrian to speak privately. Her hands trembled as she told him everything. The cold meals, the isolation, the fear, the slap. Adrian's chest tightened with every word. He felt shame rise like bile. "How long?" he asked quietly. "Too long," Miss Loretta replied. That night, Adrian sat alone in his study. He replayed every moment he ignored, every call he cut short, every sign he dismissed because trusting was easier than confronting. And then he remembered something. The plates. Jordan was supposed to eat first, but Malik did. That wasn't an accident. That was fate intervening. The detectives dug deeper. They found traces of poison in the kitchen drain, on a dishcloth, in the trash. They checked Vanessa's search history. Symptoms of poisoning, undetectable toxins, foodborne fatal substances. The evidence piled up quietly, relentlessly. Vanessa sensed it before they came for her. Guilt has a sound. It's loud when you're alone. She tried to leave, packed a bag, but grief slows the body and fear paralyzes the mind. The knock came at dawn. Vanessa didn't scream when they arrested her. She didn't fight. She only whispered one sentence as the handcuffs closed. "I was trying to protect my son," the detective replied calmly. "You killed him." Adrian watched from the doorway as Vanessa was led away. His face showed no anger, only devastation. Jordan stood behind him, clutching his sleeve. "Dad?" he whispered. Adrian turned and knelt, pulling his son into his arms. "I'm here," he said, voice breaking. "I'm not going anywhere." The trial made headlines. Billionaire's wife, charged in child poisoning case. The media dissected every detail. Vanessa's tears did not move the jury. The truth was undeniable. She had planned murder, and fate had answered with cruelty of its own. She was sentenced to life in prison. No parole. Months passed. The mansion was sold. Adrian downsized his life and his work. He turned down contracts, canceled trips, chose presence over profit. Jordan began therapy. Slowly, the fear loosened its grip. He spoke again, laughed again. He healed. One evening, Adrian and Jordan sat on the porch of their new home. Simple, warm, alive. "I miss Mom," Jordan said softly. Adrian nodded. "So do I." They sat in silence. Then Jordan asked, "Why did she hate me?" Adrian swallowed hard. "She didn't hate you," he said. "She hated what she couldn't control." Jordan nodded slowly. "I forgive her," he said. Adrian looked at his son. Stunned, Jordan added quietly, "But I'll never forget." And that was enough. Vanessa sits in a cell now, alone, with nothing but time and memory and regret. She lost everything she tried to protect, because evil is patient. But consequences are inevitable. And sometimes the poison meant for another returns to the hand that poured it.